One of the greatest centers in NBA history just won an NBA championship. The running backs in the NFL feel like they're about to start a union, and the NBA draft is right around the corner. This is the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. Let's talk about it.
You are now listening to the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the Rival Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Neal Maligno. I appreciate you for joining me as always. If you aren't subscribed, go ahead and take this second to please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget, we love to continue the conversation down in the comments, so feel free to jump in on any of the three topics that we talk about here today, or if you think we missed one, maybe you think there's one that we should have made the top three and it didn't, drop that in the comments. We love interacting with you guys. No comment goes unresponded to. Let's go ahead. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight in to topic number one. The NBA Finals is finally over. I shouldn't say finally. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was great. I wouldn't have minded it going a couple more games. However, a team who never won it before has finally won it. A center who, while he does get the accolades, he doesn't necessarily get the fan appreciation other than his own team and some of the other fans out there. He's finally starting to get more and more of his due, and that is the Denver Nuggets. They won the NBA Finals. They are your NBA champions for the 2022-2023 season. As you see from this graphic here, Nikola Jokic, the center that I was referring to, who is getting MVP awards. He didn't get it this year, but he's getting, the accolades that he deserves. However, he still doesn't get the attention or the respect that I feel like he doesn't, that someone else in his shoes would normally get. Like, LeBron James or Steph Curry or these kind of guys get all the love. No one, no one is sitting here slighting those guys. No one is doubting their dominance. No one is knocking them at all, really. I mean, unless you're just a hater, just a purebred hater. That's fine, right? Those are out there. But Jokic, he's not known outside of real NBA fans. Like, anyone would know who LeBron James is. Anyone would know who Steph Curry is. You don't have to watch basketball, to know these guys. But here we are, someone like Jokic who is dominating the league just in a different style, right? He's not your Shaq. He's not your, this Dwight Howard type of center where he's dunking the ball all over the place and playing that style of game that you become kind of accustomed to when you think of a dominating center. He's doing it in a different way. And so therefore, when he doesn't do it in this, dominant way, but more of like a finesse type of way, more of like, let me just do what has to be done. The rebounds, the assists, play team basketball, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like this quiet, I still want to say dominance. It's still dominance in my eyes. So, he's out there dominating the game in his style of play, but that style of play isn't highly recognized on the highlight reels and the TikTok videos and in, conversations just generally around novice NBA fans, kind of like people who are just kind of like passing by type of thing. Like they just watched the finals. They don't really talk about guys like him because it's not flashy. It's not, this extravagant, display of ability. It doesn't look super athletic or, it doesn't just grab your eyes in that style. But here he is. He won a championship. Again, it's great to see, from a team standpoint, a lot of good players on this team. Jamal Murray balled out. And we'll talk about him in a second. A lot of great role players on this team. A lot of guys who this is the thing with the Nuggets this year. And it's something when we were going into the series, I said that, the Heat lacked the depth. They lacked the role players. They lacked the consistency of, a team like the Nuggets, which is why outside of Jokic, outside of Murray, who I think outclassed, just Jimmy Butler by himself, they also had all these players who knew their roles, right? And were fine in it, consistent in it. They stuck in it. So in the case of say, if you talk about for a second, Aaron Gordon, for example, I'm an Orlando Magic fan. We drafted Aaron Gordon. And it was, a super exciting time. We liked the guy a lot. Obviously, we had high hopes. They drafted him super early. The thing with Aaron Gordon is he's never going to be like the guy. He's never going to be the number one guy that carries a team, puts them on their back. He can't be a Jokic. He just can't do it. Like, it's not who he is. But then he comes to a team like the Nuggets, and he fits right in where Jokic dominates, Murray dominates, and he falls in line. I'm going to be a top flight defender. I'm going to be out here dunking the ball every chance I get. I'm going to be out here running the floor. I'm going to be out here, imposing my will, defending the other team's best players. I'm going to do the dirty work, right? He did that and fit in this system and respected the authority above him, the leaders above him. He fell into place. He had lots of veterans on the team. If you've seen during the game, like Jeff Green and stuff, these guys giving him advice. He assumed a role that was fit for him, perfect for him, and dominated in it. These are the kind of players that they have. Michael Porter Jr., similar type of thing. Brown, similar type of thing. KCP, similar type of thing. These guys, found their role. The team built it around them and they dominated in that role. They didn't try to do more than they were, great at. They didn't try to, I'm good at this, but I'm going to try this too. Or I want to be a star in this or that. They stayed in their lane. They dominated in their lane. And that's what helped guys like Jokic and Murray do their thing and be the leaders that they can be the all-stars that they could be the top players on this team that they needed to be to win a championship. The Heat, on the other side, they had a bunch of injured players who were not there in the finals. They had Jimmy Butler carrying the team on his back. He was also hurt. But then you got other guys, they have role players, but they're inconsistent, right? They're like 3-point type shooters. And if they don't get rolling, then the team falls behind and it's just hard to overcome because they don't have other guys, doing the job like, the Aaron Gordons can do and the Porter Juniors can do. They just had Jimmy Butler, they had Bam. But outside of that, their role players just weren't picking it up. And to be fair, like they didn't depend on those guys necessarily all season. Like they had other guys who were hurt. Hero was hurt. Oladipo was hurt. So these other guys were trying to step up and make it work, and they just couldn't. They got themselves all the way there. They beat all the teams, in front of them. They just couldn't get over that hump, to win the finals. And again, even as a fully healthy team, good luck beating this team. But with the Heat, I feel like they wouldn't have beat some of the teams in the West, period. Like, I don't think it had to be the Nuggets. I think if they would have played the Lakers, they would have lost. I just don't think they were as good as, some of these Western Conference teams. And I believe they'll have struggles to get back here next year unless they add some free agents, which is totally possible. It's already being floated around. The rumors are already out there. So they may as well, they might just be back here again next year. We'll see, how that plays out in terms of where, the Heat end up next year. But what we can say for sure is that the Nuggets will likely, if all things considered go correctly, it's very possible that they are back in this spot again next year, as a top of the West. What I do want to also show you is Nikola Jokic. This was from NBA Twitter. They updated his resume. NBA champion, Finals MVP, 2 times MVP in the NBA, Western Conference Finals MVP, 5 times NBA All Star, 5 times All NBA, All Rookie Team. Listen, whether he's playing the way the centers you believe should, or he's dominating the fashion you think centers should, he's dominating in his style of play. He's got all the, records and achievements to prove it. This guy's going to go down as one of the best in history. You're watching him appreciate the moment, just like we appreciate LeBron James, just like we appreciate, the Steph Currys and all these kind of guys. Like he's doing his thing from his, style of play. It's actually kind of exciting to see because it gives you a different, way to look at things, right? Like there's the super athletic guys, there's the guys who could jump out the gym, there's the guys who come from all different walks of life, and then you got this guy who's just different, right? Like some people thought he looked fat or a little overweight, or he looked, is not out there, like I said, running the court as, as such a, highly athletic person would look. He's not slamming the ball everywhere, dunking it from everywhere, jumping from the free throw line. He's just doing his thing. And so those accolades I thought were impressive. And it was just cool to show because again, this is a guy who, again, he doesn't get all the flashy attention. It just is what it is. And another guy, maybe it's just the Nuggets in general, because in general, they don't get the attention. Another guy I want to talk about is Jamal Murray for a second here. Jamal Murray is an elite company as the 4th NBA player to average 20 points and 10 assists in a final series. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Magic Johnson are the only other players to ever do this. You see here in the graphic, Jamal Murray is now being added to that as an NBA champion. So I thought this was cool because again, Jamal Murray, another guy who, he got hurt, he had injuries, wasn't sure, what his future looked like. He showed promise, before the injuries, but when it came down to whether or not, would he be the guy who would help carry this team to a championship? Would he be the player of their future as their point guard? Many people weren't sure because of the injuries. And matter of fact, it's not even fair to say people weren't sure. He wasn't sure to the point where, after the championship, he said this, way to get you one, baby. He's talking to the owner, Stan Kroenke of the Nuggets. I appreciate you staying patient with me. Y'all could have gone a different route. I appreciate you staying with me. We got it done. This is what he was saying to, to the
Where to get you one, baby? I know. Where to get you one? Thank you. I appreciate you staying patient with me. Oh, no. I appreciate you staying patient with me. Y'all could have done it, gone a different route. I appreciate you staying with me, man. We got it done. I love you. Love you. Where to get you one?
I thought that was awesome right there. I thought that was, cool to see from him. Again, a guy who got injured, had a long road to recovery. It was serious injuries. And you're like, man, will he fulfill that potential? Will he be one of those stories where a guy doesn't come back from it? Will the team move on? He had to deal with all that, right? And this is cool because the Nuggets are a team who has built this for a while, right? Jokic was drafted a while back, Murray a while back, and they kept plugging in pieces slowly but surely, get into this point where even the head coach, Mike Malone had been there forever in terms of like basketball. Like coaches sometimes get 3 years, you're gone, 2 years, you're gone. Like you don't usually allow this process to play out. And here you are, a team that's actually doing it the right way. And that's why this is rewarding. This is why it's fun to see, this team win a championship because they're doing it the right way in terms of like they're not just buying a bunch of superstars, throwing them all together, getting a bunch of lower level contract players around them, some veterans, and then just go out there and figure it out. This team actually drafted Jokic, drafted Murray, made a trade for Gordon, signed some veteran free agents, and really made them reach their highest level of potential from the way they played and stuck with the head coach, kept the system growing for a long time. And when we speak about players, the veterans that they signed and what they're going to do next, you got a guy like Bruce Brown here, who even Aaron Gordon, knows what's up. What's the future for him?
He's gonna get paid, is what he's gonna get paid. Stop playing.
You hear that? He said he's going to get paid. Let me turn that up and play it back.
He's gonna get paid, is what he's gonna get paid. Stop playing. I'm gonna finna get a bag.
All right, so there's Aaron Gordon, letting people know that Bruce Brown is going to get a bag. He's correct. And there was actually a clip that I don't have here right now for this video's sake, but if you search for it on Twitter or something, you can find it where Bruce Brown actually said after the NBA Finals win that basically when he was a free agent, he was between him and another player, and the player got the job over him for a certain team, not for the Nuggets. And that he asked the front office, why did you choose that player over me? And they said, hey, listen, if we would have signed you, we really wouldn't have even played you. So these are the kind of things we're talking about, right? Like he ends up going with the Nuggets. He plays at such a high level, finds his role. Sure, he's on a team with Jokic. That helps. Sure, he's on a team with Murray. That helps. Sure, he's in a great system that has been implemented and, perfected in Denver. It all helps. But that doesn't mean that, that's the only reason the success happened. It doesn't mean that if he goes to another team, he won't, have similar success. Other teams will now know how to use him, know how he fits. He has the confidence. He's done it before on an NBA champion team. So someone's going to throw the bag at him for sure. He also has a player option with the Nuggets. I want to say it's like a little under 7 million. So there's a chance he just stays with the Nuggets, and takes that contract. They have a lot to figure out, in Denver in terms of, contracts and what they're going to do and who they're going to keep. It's mostly veteran situations, but they'll be able to keep that core intact. And as long as you got Jokic and Murray, and of course, guys like Gordon, MPJ, you'll be able to figure it all out. You'll be able to make it work. So they're going to be a team, a legitimate threat every single year as these guys, because they're not even old really in terms of basketball. Like they're not guys who are like they're dwindling away or at the end of their leash. These guys got a while to go still. So I believe in the organization. I believe what they're doing. They're building it the right way. They'll be able to continue to replenish that. So that's a good thing. For the East, it's all up in the air, right? Like the Heat could make it back. Especially like I said, we're hearing lots of rumors. Possibly they're interested in Kyrie, Damian Lillard. Guys have expressed interest in potentially going to the Heat, or the Heat have expressed interest in them, trying to trade them or sign them as free agents now. We'll see how that plays out. Again, there's a bunch of interesting free agents going around, and Miami's always a hot spot for that. So, we'll see how that plays out. There's also teams who are going to try to shake it up in the East a lot. There's teams where, they're either going to be trading for stars, signing stars. They got high draft capital. We'll see how it plays out. We'll talk about the NBA draft a little later. But I just wanted to wrap up this whole topic of the NBA Finals. Congratulations to the Denver Nuggets for winning the NBA Finals, for doing things the right way, going through the full process of drafting players, growing players, keeping head coaches and a system intact where you formulate it all, you grow it all, and it all came, to fruition. So congratulations to Denver Nuggets and for your first championship. It's good for Nuggets fans. I'm happy for them. Again, the Heat were no slouch. There's no knock on them. Obviously, they got something to improve on and get back to the drawing board on, but there's no doubt they will, right? Like they've repeated this over and over. Another team that has stuck with a head coach for a long period of time. I think that's a strong sign here, right? Like two teams, both in the NBA Finals, have stuck with the head coach for multiples of years, like 5+ years for both of these guys, even way past that, I believe, at this point for the Heat. So at this point, it's like that should be telling you something. I don't think that's a coincidence that both teams in the NBA Finals have had a coach for a long period of time and some homegrown talent, some free agents they pulled together, role players who have really just fit into these perfect niches on the team. I think that's an important way to look at this when building a team rather than just going, hey, we need 2 or 3 top guys in the league, throw them all together, we'll figure out the rest. I'm not really into that recipe. That is it for me on the NBA Finals. I'm curious what you guys think. Will the Nuggets be back in the NBA Finals next year? That's the question of the day for this topic. Will the Nuggets be back in the finals next year? Drop it in the comments below. Let's further that discussion. And now on to topic number 2. All right, we're here. We have to talk about this. It sucks, but in the NFL, the running backs are rising up into this position where it feels like they're pushing back. It feels like they want to start a damn union at this point. It's getting a little crazy. This has been kind of a hot topic for NFL fans, whether you're into fantasy football, whether you're just talking about your favorite team, whether you're talking about how teams are built to win championships. This topic of running backs has always been a thing. So, like, if a team drafts a running back really early in the draft, a lot of people boo-hoo it. They say it's not a good idea. Running backs are so replaceable. Why would you draft a running back so early? This is the same thing when it comes to running backs contracts. Some people believe, many people believe, even NFL teams obviously believe that running backs are only worth so much, right? Like they can only help a team so much. They can only carry a team so much. And their years of being able to do that can only go so long. And that's true for anybody and everything, but for the running backs, it feels like a very tight window. So you have guys coming up across the league right now, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris. All these guys are talking about this topic, and some are really pushing back right now. And we'll start with, let's go ahead and start with the Saquon Barkley comments first. He here, you know, Dove says Giants running back Saquon Barkley told the team he won't report to mandatory minicamp. He explains his reasoning here. He believes that the NFL tagged Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and himself to prevent them hitting free agency and cap the salary at 10 million for a running back. And so this is him talking here.
About the market for running backs. Do you think maybe in the next collective bargaining or something that the union and the owners can come together and find something that works out better for running backs? Because it seems like a lot of guys are just not being paid at the value that they need to be paid.
I don't know, because that's going to be in 10 years. And to be honest, I love the game a lot, but I don't see myself being on a football field in 10 years. But what I will say about the running back market and the value of it, what do you think is going to happen? They tagged the top 3 guys. We didn't even get a chance to hit the open market. So when we don't get a chance to hit the open market, it hurts a guy like Miles. It hurts all those other guys. They put the cap at 10. And then when they have the tag, they have all the leverage. And that's the reality of it. But there's a...
All right. So you get the gist of what he's saying here. So, you have this situation now, right? Josh Jacobs is doing the same thing. He's not reporting to minicamp. Saquon Barkley is not reporting to minicamp. Dalvin Cook gets cut by the Vikings. You got, like he said, Tony Pollard got the franchise tag. Tony Pollard was a little different of a situation. Maybe he feels that, that money is fine for him. He kind of had his first big season last year after being behind Zeke for so long. So maybe he's a little more patient, than these two are. But these two have been playing for a while now. They've had really successful seasons in multiple years. So they feel a little more entitled, which is understandable. They feel like they prove something a little more maybe. We'll see what Tony Pollard's position is. But at the end of the day, these guys are really, standing on their business. So the problem becomes this: Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, all these guys standing on their ground, standing 10 toes down, that they deserve more money. They deserve the opportunity to hit free agency, try to get more money. Teams are stopping us from doing that. Cool. Now, obviously, to the regular person, you and I, $10 million a year sounds like a lot of money. Sounds like, how can these guys turn it down? That's a little crazy. And you heard him say there, it's 10 years away. I don't plan on being in the league in 10 years. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, no one plans on you being in the league in 10 years because you're a running back. And no one plans on you being even a really good running back for, only so many more years because you've done it for so many years already. There can only be a limit on how much damage your body can take, how much your body can withhandle. You're being beat up more than any player on this field, right? So we can see quarterbacks lasting really long a lot of times. I mean, Tom Brady just played to 45, right? So this crazy age where, quarterbacks who are being protected by the league are not taking the damage that, running backs are taking. They can last longer. And this happens in some of the other positions. Wide receivers sometimes can play for a while, certain defensive positions, but running back, it just doesn't happen. On top of that, running backs are more easily replaceable than a quarterback, for instance, or a top flight, defensive player. That we've seen this happen where, Ezekiel Elliott kind of moving him out of the way. Tony Pollard comes in, replaces him. Someone gets hurt, another guy comes in, a couple of guys do the job just as well. They still get you the 100 something yards, couple of touchdowns. They still carry the team's running game. There are special cases, right? Like the Raiders are no doubt better than Josh Jacobs. He is a special running back. The team, put themselves on his back and he won them a lot of games. So a team like the Raiders, you understand kind of Josh Jacobs' stance, but again, it's $10 million. So it's hard for the average person to kind of like get the grip on like, why are you complaining about that? Why is that such a bad thing? Getting $10 million a year sounds like a lot of money. Again, these are franchise tags. These are not long-term contracts. That's another big holdup here is these guys want 10 years times however much years, not a franchise tag or 12 million times or 14 million times the amount of years. They don't want just 1 year because you can get hurt in that 1 year and then you're kind of like just stuck, right? So I understand both sides. I see both sides of the coin here. I see both sides of where these guys are trying to come from. Definitely drop your opinion down in the comments when we talk about, it's not, again, I said, it's not just Saquon, feeling this way. Other running backs are standing up with him. We got Josh Jacobs, who I mentioned earlier. He had tweeted here, sometimes it's not about you. We got to do it for the ones after us. So this is why I say they feel like they're making a statement, not just for them, but they feel like every season running backs are coming along. Every season, new rookies enter the league. We want to make a point. This is bigger than us. It's bigger than the money we're making. We want to, set the narrative, for all of us. We want to set the way this should work for all running backs. And so again, I'm not against these guys necessarily doing this. I hate the idea of the franchise tag too, just because of the injuries and stuff that can happen in that 1 year and really throw off your value the rest of your career. But, for a case like Josh Jacobs, like he's got other running backs behind him that are all getting all this work right now. This is the danger you play. All these young guys behind you, right? Or veterans that are now getting all the work in this offense and in mini camps and all these things that you're missing. At what point does a team possibly say, hey, we're comfortable with who we got? We don't need Josh Jacobs to come back. Let's go ahead and take that franchise tag away. No one's going to give you that money potentially. Once the Raiders pull it or the Giants pull it, or if any of these teams fall back or they all fall back together, that's the danger for guys like Josh Jacobs, right? If one of the teams step off, if, the Giants offer, Barkley 15 million for 3 years, whatever, then the Raiders are in a tough spot. They're going to have to offer Jacobs or somebody else potentially will, because then they're kind of setting the market. But if the Raiders and the Giants and the Vikings and these teams also stand 10 toes down and refuse to budge on the contracts and refuse to budge on these franchise tags, then really ultimately, like the running backs like Josh Jacobs and stuff are hurting themselves at the end of the day because they're the ones who need the money. The organizations are going to stay around. They're getting rich off the players. They're going to always be here. The game is not going to be, hurt because of Josh Jacobs necessarily. I hope he gets what he wants. I hope, these guys are able to fight for what they want and it actually, plays out the way that they're hoping, and the results end up being what they want. But at the end of the day, the business, the market, which sets the values, which dictates, which way this thing goes, is not dictated in a way that would, benefit these guys. Najee Harris said this, to see people like that get released, he's referring to Dalvin Cook, especially in my position. It's like, damn, what did they do? And is it because of their age? You know what I mean? Dalvin Cook is coming off multiple 1,000-yard seasons. What? I don't know. Is it money from the team? They got to pay somebody. I don't know, but it's eye-opening for sure. So a guy like Najee Harris here is getting, that treatment now on, this is going to be coming for me too at some point. And this is why, the strength in numbers will happen if guys get behind Barkley and Jacobs and other running backs really push for this. It's potentially they could, change something. They could fix something. We'll see. Again, this also opens the idea of, as we keep mentioning, Dalvin Cook was cut. So Vikings Dalvin Cook is looking for a significant contract in free agency. Cook won't sign a $4 to $5 million type of contract. Here we go. Because a lot of people are also asking, what if the Raiders pull the contract from Josh Jacobs and then sign Dalvin Cook? Well, if Dalvin Cook won't take, anything less either, then it's not really going to work that way. But what if Dalvin Cook did come in and say, hey, I'll take $8 million, right? Give me 3 years, $8 million each year. that's less than Josh Jacobs is asking. I'm equally as good as Josh Jacobs. That's how he may look at it. It may actually work. Who knows? Again, another position to take. But for the running backs to really gain leverage here to gain, get accomplished what they're trying to do, he can't do that, right? Because again, him taking a lesser deal will hurt everybody else at the position and the job they're trying to get done. So, I mean, again, I'm curious. Do you guys think that the running backs deserve more money? Do you think they should deserve these longer contracts, or do you think teams should stay in their ground where they feel like, hey, you guys are easily replaceable compared to other positions. Your guys' careers don't last as long as other positions. We can't bend over backwards for you guys and give you all this money that you're asking for because just the market doesn't dictate it. One other thing here. Let's go to this one. Le'Veon Bell, we all know, is famous for a situation like this when he was with the Steelers. He was in a situation himself where he kind of got into this contract situation, and some would say, it didn't play out the way he wanted it to. In a recent appearance on the Still Here podcast, Bell admitted he should have taken off the offer the Steelers put on the table for him in 2018 instead of bolting to the New York Jets. It was like a little petty, the guaranteed stuff. I'm thinking, could I have just ate it? Yeah, I probably could have. Yeah, I probably could have ate it. I probably really could have ate it. So this is, again, a situation where he's admitting that it wasn't a good situation for him. He did sit out the entire 2018 season and demanded a guaranteed contract that the Steelers were unwilling to give him. He wound up signing with the Jets, where he had an unproductive season and a half. Although he's still just 31 years old, he has not played in the NFL since 2021. This is what you don't want to see happen to Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook. Don't play yourself out of position. Don't play yourself out of a job. Don't play yourself into a bad, a worse situation. Your situation that you're currently in is a great situation. Josh Jacobs clearly meshes with the Raiders from a, personnel standpoint, from a playbook standpoint, from a results and production standpoint. It all worked last year. Even in a down year for the team, he balled out. Sir, don't play yourself out of that, Josh Jacobs, right? Like, don't play your position so hard where you're trying to, quote unquote, change the game or prove a point or feed an ego and just get yourself. I believe the Raiders would work out just a regular deal with him, right? Like $10 million a year for how many years? I don't know if he's thinking I want more than that. That's what I'm thinking of, right? Barkley, he wants more than the 10 million, right? So these are where the issues come up. This is what these guys are fighting for. We'll see ultimately who wins in this, debate, in this argument, in this position, in this battle, if you will. It'll suck if the running backs really get hurt by this, really get burned by this, and end up. I don't want to see more Le'Veon Bell situations. I really don't. I don't want to see Josh Jacobs end up like Le'Veon Bell. I don't want to see Dalvin Cook or Saquon Barkley end up like Le'Veon Bell. I want their careers to end up more productive, more fruitful. I want it to work out for the teams they're on. I want the contracts to be good for both sides of the lanes here. You know what I mean? Like both sides of the table. Let's just make it work, guys. Let's figure it out, because I would hate to see anyone, do worse because of this. And ultimately, we know that the team will likely not end up with the bad side of this. It'll most likely be the player. The players will likely be the ones hurt because the organization is in a position to, do everything they can to not, be burned by this, right? They'll save the 10 million they were going to pay you. They'll apply it to somebody else. They'll get other running backs in there, younger guys, other vets, mix it all up, and they'll still find success in a running game. It's just the way it is. It's just unfortunate. It's the way it is. They will not be like Josh Jacobs. It will not be one player as good as Saquon Barkley. It will not be one player as good as Dalvin Cook potentially, or it might. And that's the risk you're running here. So hopefully everyone can figure this out and get it squared away. But again, drop in the comments. Do you think the teams should back off and give these running backs what they want, or should the running backs acknowledge the true value of the market? It is what it is. Sign those deals, get their couple year contracts for 10 million plus, and move on and be happy. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. We want to continue the conversation there. Now, as always, once we're done with topic number 2, it's on to number 3. All right, the last topic of the day is the NBA draft. There's a lot of fun players entering the league, and of course, we're going to discuss it a little bit here. It's kind of NBA draft. It's kind of NBA offseason conversation. There's a lot happening. As we talked about earlier in the episode, NBA free agency is also coming up. It's also approaching, and there's guys like Kyrie Irving and these other names floating around that teams are interested in. There's a couple of different veterans that are game changers. There's the Dame Lillards of the world. There's just a bunch of different options out there. And so that's a big deal. But also the NBA draft is literally next week. Well, depending on when you're watching this, but it's next week for me as of right now. And there's a lot of things going on. There's going to be tons of rumors. There's going to be tons of stories. There's going to be truths. There's going to be false narratives. There's going to be all of that. Right? Let's start with one of the most interesting, what I think is most interesting storylines that's popped up of the draft. Is it real? Is it just a talking point? Is it just for clicks? I don't know yet. It sounds like it should have some legs. I mean, I'm kind of feeling it, the idea of this happening, and that is the idea of Zion Williamson potentially being traded from the Pelicans. We all know he's dealing with some, issues right now off the basketball court. He's also dealt with a lot of basketball court issues where he hasn't been on it. But here is Brian Windhorst at ESPN talking briefly about the potential of Zion being traded.
Haven't been any offers made necessarily yet, but it makes you really not take too far of a leap to wonder if the league is certainly wondering if the Pelicans are going to make for the first time truly Zion Williamson available ahead of next week's draft. To get up to that level in the top 5, you'd have to consider a player of this caliber. He's obviously had injury history a little.
What? Do you guys really think that's going to happen? Do you guys really think Zion Williamson will be traded? Do you think the Pelicans will do it? I totally understand it. Like, from an organizational standpoint, I totally get it. I'm actually not mad at it. I got to be honest. If I was a Pelicans fan, I honestly would not be opposed to it at all, especially if we're talking about trading Williamson, getting into the top 3 of the NBA draft, where I think you got 3 potential, game changers for your team. I think obviously Victor's going to go number 1. The Spurs aren't going to trade for Williamson, but I think you got a real chance there with Brandon Miller and Scoot as potential game changers for your team. I like Scoot Henderson more. I think that he's the clear number 2. And so if you can get up there and get Scoot Henderson for this team, it ain't bad. That ain't a bad Pelicans team. If you got Scoot, you got CJ, you got Ingram, you got a bunch of other young guys around them, I actually ain't mad at that. I'd rather have a healthy, committed, motivated, hungry Scoot over a, off the court, all these baby mamas and women drama and injuries and weight fluctuations and all kinds of stuff going on the court, Zion Williamson. I'd rather have it. I'm just not into the whole troubled player narrative thing. I'm not into it. Like, whether it's injuries, whether it's off the, when you add that off the court stuff, it just gets messier and shows you how he's living off the court, the distractions. If I'm the Pelicans, I'm trading Zion Williamson all day long for a top 3 pick. All day long. I'm not even questioning it, thinking about it, second guessing it. Gone. I could not deal with this headache that Zion Williamson has brought to this team at this point. If they decide to stick with him or no other team wants him, then that's another thing. I wouldn't trade him just for any pick, but I would definitely, if I can get that top 3 and get one of those 3 players, for sure, I would pull that trade off. I think it's well worth it at this point. So these are the kind of narratives I'm talking about, though, that are popping up. We got that. Also from Brian Windhorst, you also have the situation where he says that, Portland Trailblazers at number 3, Rockets at number 4, Detroit Pistons at 5, and Mavericks at 10 are all looking to trade out of their first round picks. Is that true? Again, I'm not sure. Is it, is this what he's hearing? Is it just a rumor? Is it just smoke screens? We'll see how that, plays out. But if it's true, there's a lot of teams here with the opportunity to, trade up. And I can see it potentially being some of these teams that are playoff teams who want to infuse the team with a young talent. They think they're, one player away, and maybe it's just a young player that they can figure that out. A lot of teams like to trade future draft picks. Like in the NBA, they trade picks like way down the line. Like, we just seen a trade the other day for a 2029 pick. It's just like, what? Anyway, this happens in the NBA, so it's totally possible. You also have teams who are like kind of in that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 range who may want to trade up. Like the Magic, for instance, can trade their 6 and 11 pick maybe for number 3. That's potentially, an available option as well. So this is, an interesting dynamic, being added into the flow of things. If all those teams are honestly looking to trade out of their early draft pick. On top of that, again, I keep going back to the fact that there's going to be rumors, there's going to be smoke screens, there's going to be players' names floated out there. We're going to start seeing stuff like this. Golden State Warriors are pursuing a trade of Jonathan Kuminga for a high draft pick. Is it true? Does it really have legs? Like, is it a really legitimate thing that they're really pursuing? Or are they just putting feelers out there? Are they trying to, kind of test the waters and see like, hey, can we get ourselves a high draft pick? Because again, the Warriors, another team, that's what I'm talking about, these playoff teams, these borderline finals teams, these teams that are right there on the cusp They may feel like they're a certain player away. They like a guy at the top of the draft. They go, hey, we'll offer up this young player, or we'll offer up this vet and a bunch of money and all this kind of stuff, all these draft picks. You let us get that one player. You let us get that one player we think we're away from a championship or the future of our team. Sometimes it's like, you got a bunch of fade-in players, a bunch of older players, and you're like, how do we restart this next generation of our team? This is a situation where you're going to see tons of stuff like this happening. Again, I don't know how realistic this particular one is. It may be real, it may not be. We'll see. Again, who knows, right? What we do know for sure in the NBA draft is the fact that Victor Wembanyama is a monster, and he's about to enter the league, and it's about to get crazy. And I mean, just look at these highlights, guys. I mean, just for 1 second, let me give it more screen time. I mean, this is crazy. This guy is ridiculously good. And there's just no question about it. There's no question about how good he is. There's no question the kind of player the Spurs are about to get. It's pretty incredible. He does stuff that at his size just shouldn't be done, shouldn't be possible, or we haven't seen possible. It's impressive. It's impressive. And so, he's entering the league. He's going to, the Spurs. There's no question about it. They're getting this game-changing talent. It's actually a great, landing spot for him. Overall, he looked very happy about it. Obviously, they're happy about it. I think it's a great team. They just, they keep landing these guys, right? Like they've had, some pretty good luck with these tall, big men who can really change the game. And so here we go. That'll be an interesting one. Again, he's the guaranteed number one pick. There's no question about it. The rest of them, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, the Thompson brothers, there's just so much, fluid situation going here. And I think that's why some of these guys are willing to trade out or trade down a little, because they're not necessarily mad at whoever they get from 4 all the way down to like 15, right? Like they're happy with so many players that are in that range that they'll trade down, get some extra draft picks or get an extra vet or get another younger player and still get a player they're happy with in the draft. That's what's interesting about this draft. A little top heavy, but after that, it's kind of hit or miss of, what you get at that point. Something funny before I wrap this conversation up about the NBA draft and why it's this, fun thing, this lottery, if you will. There's a lottery picks. The NBA draft has 2 rounds. And as we know, if you ain't drafted in the top 15, it's kind of shaky for you, man. Like you may not be that great. You may not really get too much of an opportunity. So the second round, those players are even more hit or miss. But we just talked about the NBA Finals champion, Jokic. He was picked number 41. This is how funny it is. When he was picked, this post is from Alex Kennedy that I wanted to show you guys really quick before we wrap this up. He shared this. As the broadcast mentioned, Nikola Jokic was the number 41 pick in the 2014 NBA draft, but let's not forget that Jokic was selected during a Taco Bell commercial. This is the actual commercial, and you see down at the bottom of the screen, pick is in, current selection, Nikola Jokic. They didn't even have him on the screen. They weren't talking about him at the moment. It was just so passive. They didn't care. That man who didn't even get screen time when he was drafted became an NBA Finals champion, a 2-time MVP, could have been 3-time this year, but things are a little weird. However, he may have more of them, more championships, more MVPs, more accomplishments, but he's drafted at the end of a Taco Bell commercial. I mean, during a Taco Bell commercial. It's the NBA draft. That's how things go. Sometimes your name gets dropped on the bottom of a screen and you don't get talked about. You're in the second round. People don't care about you as much, except people who are diehard gurus or, diehard fans who, just get excited about whoever their team picks up. And you're a Nikola Jokic and you go, I'm going to overcome all of that. I'm going to believe in the process. I'm going to believe in my work ethic. I'm going to be in a good situation with my team. I'm going to be a team player. I'm going to work hard. And I'm going to be a 2-time MVP. I'm going to be an NBA Finals champion. He's out here crushing it. Second round pick. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a top 3 pick. You don't have to be a top 13 pick, top 15 pick, top 20 pick. You can affect the game from anywhere as long as you put in the work. You have the skills and ability. You believe in yourself and you're in a good situation. Sometimes it's just a situation thing, right? If you went somewhere else, who knows how it would have played out. It could have been totally different. We could be talking about a totally different career for Nikola Jokic. Maybe if he ended up on a team that didn't believe in him, didn't give him the opportunities, pushed him aside, didn't care about his development, kept changing the system with different head coaches. Who knows how it could have played out then? Again, NBA draft is coming up. I'm curious who you want your favorite team to draft. My Magic have 2 picks, 2 damn picks. It could be a crazy draft. They could trade up for them. They could trade for a vet. They could draft 2 players. I'm excited about it. Obviously, I'm very excited about the NBA draft. I want to know who you want your team to pick. And if you don't care about who your team picks, who's your favorite player in the draft? Who do you think is the biggest game changer, or the assassin at a certain position, a shooter, a rebounder, a defensive, juggernaut? Who do you like the most in the NBA draft? Who do you want your team to take? Put it in the comments. Let's chop it up and talk about it. Don't no Magic jokes. So no Orlando Magic slander. No Orlando Magic jokes. None of that shall prosper in the comments. I really appreciate you guys. Last but not least, this YouTube show is brought to you by Rival Fantasy Sports, which is a daily fantasy sports company. Let me go ahead and share really quickly with you what we're working with over at Rival Fantasy. You go ahead, you can sign up today. Get on the site. We have a link in the description that'll help you out with a nice little bonus. You can go on there. They have all types of games for you to play, whether it's challenges like you see here in front of you. You pick a side, you put your amount, place your bet. Somebody else can come along and pick up the other side. When you have social challenges, you can go in there and someone could either send you a challenge or you can create one and send one to them. Season long will be coming. Fantasy football will be the first one that will be there on the site for you to play. After that, we also have fantasy bingo, which is really cool. You create a roster. No matter what, right now it's obviously going to be baseball season. So you create your roster and you hope to hit on a bingo card by hitting the achievements that they set for you. So for instance, this would be a winning card. They hit 4 corners. And so they won on this particular card. You can see in the game log what you hit on exactly to fill in those 4 boxes. This is a fun game. It's $1 a card. And then you have fantasy book, which is more your traditional over under. You could pick anywhere from 2 to 5 players. Also, if other sports are occurring like MLB, NFL, and NBA at the same time, for instance, or NFL, hockey, whatever the case may be, you can actually mix sports. But you would just go in here, pick your over under on the player. Everything that you need is here. You could bet from $1 to $10. Obviously, the more you bet, the more your entry goes up. You times your money. And again, you can search for players. You can look at their stats. Everything is here in one place for you, especially when the fantasy football starts off. You'll be able to play all your fantasy sports as well as your daily fantasy and DFS all in one place. So Rival Fantasy Sports, I highly mention it for you. RivalFantasySports.com if you want to play on your PC, or if you want to use it on the phone, we have a smartphone app. You just go into your app store, type Rival Fantasy Sports, and you could do that as well. Download it, sign up. Again, we have a link in the description, which will get you a nice little bonus when you do that. And again, there's tons of games on there, a little bit for everybody, whether you're a super diehard, whether you're just a little into fantasy while you want to mix it up while you're playing sports or watching sports. That's a great way to get involved. Again, smartphone app, you can go download it right now, Rival Fantasy Sports, or use it on the PC. It's up to you. That is all we have for you guys today. I appreciate you for joining me always. Jump in the comments now. Let's continue the conversation in the comments. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I am Neal Maligno. This is the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. We're out.